evening, everyone, all you listeners out there. We are back for a second episode of Global Women Enrichment. I am Venoria Todman, your host for today, and we have Paola Peer, Dr. Sandra Brown, and our special guest today, the lovely Dr. Betsy Guerra. And I know she will correct my enunciation of her name later on. So this is our second episode, and we are very happy to be here, coming to you again from the lovely and beautiful sunny Miami, Florida. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Betsy Guerra, who is going to tell us a little bit about her journey to self-actualization. And this meeting will be basically interactive. So, Dr. Betsy, take it over.
Thank you, Venoria. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm pleased and honored to be part of this beautiful project that you have created. I am Dr. Betsy Guerra. I am a speaker, psychotherapist, but above all, I'm a woman of faith, a devoted wife, and a mother of 4. And I know that part of the purpose of this program that you have is to shine inspiration to the women that have a gift, a God-given gift that they're responsible for sharing with the world, and may feel taken back, or may feel like paralyzed, or may not know how it is possible for them, and whether or not they're special enough to pursue their dreams, or I should say their responsibilities to make this world a better place. So I would love to share a little bit of my story and hopefully inspire women that may feel stuck, may be in pain, and may need a little hope to rise above adversity, pain, and all the hardship that they may be experiencing. So thank you for having me, and I think I will start with the end. I lived a fairy tale life. I had planned everything that I wanted. I had found my Prince Charming. He came and rescued me in the white horse, and I was the happiest woman on earth. I had 3 children 7 years ago, and one summer day, I was in my backyard celebrating the end of summer, and we had family and friends, and it was the last day we were going to spend in the pool before school started, and it also allowed us to enjoy the backyard one last time in the summer because we were starting construction. And I was with my family, and my daughter, the second one, I had 3 at the time, so she was almost 3. Her name is Fofi, Veronica, but we call her Fofi. She came to me and she said, "Mommy, I want to be where you're at." What she meant was, "Mommy, can you come outside to go in the pool with us?" So I did. I went into the pool with them, and my husband and I had like this cheerleading game where we put our daughters on our shoulders. You know, I had them on my shoulders. My husband had me on his shoulders, and then we would play in the pool. And we were doing that. It was beautiful. The day was perfect. Family around, people, friends that were like family were with us, inside, outside the pool, everywhere. And it was just perfect until I was having a conversation with someone in the pool, and she asked suddenly, "Where's Fofi?" And at that moment, my heart pondered, and I don't know why I felt this like rush of adrenaline and fear, and I was like, I looked everywhere, and I couldn't find her. She was right next to me, except at the bottom of the pool. I rushed into the water. I grabbed her. I held her. I clutched her against my chest, and I went against the pressure of the water, and I brought her up to the surface, and I put her on the pavers by the edge of the pool, and I had a friend at the house that was a physician at a hospital. So she came and we called 911, and she was attending to her, and she had pulse, and And at that moment, I just removed myself from the scene because she was being taken care of. And I prayed, and I prayed, and I prayed, and I, please save her, God, please save her, God, please save her. And I was confident that he would save her because I am a woman of faith, and I had shown him, and I had been raising her for him, and I trusted that he was going to save her. So I prayed, and I prayed, and I didn't want to stop praying because I was scared that he would interpret any pause as lack of faith. The ambulance came. We got into the ambulance. I'm soaking wet, and I'm shivering, and I'm not sure if I'm shivering because of how cold it was or because of the fear and all the emotions that were taking place. And we got to the hospital in what seemed like 2 minutes. Everything was so fast. It was so perfect. She was going to be saved. I lived next to the hospital. The 911 was there in 2 minutes. I had a doctor from the emergency room at my house. It was like perfect. And we made it to the hospital. The doctors are working on her. I don't know what happened. Everything was so fast and in slow motion, and I'm just praying. And at some point, I say, God, can you give me something I can repeat in prayer without me having to think about what else to say? I was so drained and overwhelmed. And the verse that came to mind was, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I said, no, because that meant she wasn't going to make it. And I thought it was lack of faith. So I said, no, Betsy, have faith. He's going to save her. He's going to save her. So I continued to pray on my own. I dismissed that scripture, and I went on, and I'm looking at her, and suddenly I look at the monitor, and the monitor had a straight line in one of the areas, and I'm like, is that the flat line? Like, what's going on? Like, the doctors are still working on her. So I pray, like, I'm like, we have to be specific with what we ask for God to help us with. So I'm like, make her heartbeat, make her heartbeat, make her heartbeat. And I had a vision of, or an image of the possibility of her, God making her heartbeat, but her not being the Fofi that I knew, right? Like her. And I remembered my sister. I have a sister with severe mental retardation, and she was born fine, and she suffered from rubella and had a very high fever that led to convulsions and epilepsy, and she was in a coma, and she was supposed to die, and she didn't. God saved her. God made her heartbeat, but she's not the same person that she was before she went through this. So I thought that could happen to her, and I was like, I don't care. I don't care. She's my daughter. I'm gonna love her regardless. Make her heartbeat. And the doctors kept on working on her, and I kept on praying and begging him to save my daughter, and her heart didn't beat. And at some point, my husband looks at me and he goes, baby, this time it's gonna work. Like, they're trying something different. The doctors are trying something different. The doctors really were treating my daughter as if she was their own. And at that moment, my knees buckled, and I fell on the ground, and I was kneeling by the stretcher where my daughter's lifeless body laid. And I started singing a song of hope. It was in Spanish, it's called Cántico Celeste. In English, it translates to celestial chant. And it's a song that I love to sing because it brought a lot of hope when there was darkness, and I used it as a lullaby for my daughters. I didn't mean to sing it. I didn't plan it. It just came out of my mouth, or in my mind, really. I wasn't doing it out loud. And at that point, I knew. And I saw my husband still hopeful. And I am the hopeless romantic. I am the dreamer in my relationship. He's the one that brings me back to reality. So to think that he still had hope and I knew otherwise was excruciating. Right? Like seeing, at that point, I wasn't sure if it was more painful to know in my heart that Fofi had died, or to see my husband feel that pain and have a hope that was not going to be fulfilled. And God didn't make her heart beat. He didn't save my daughter the way I wanted her to be saved. But I learned later on that he did save her in a different way. And I learned that what he revealed to me with the scripture of I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me was a great truth. Like I am devoted and obsessed with my husband and kids. So I didn't think I could live without my daughter, right? Like I feel like that's like a mother's worst nightmare. And I couldn't live without my daughter. I wanted to die. I wanted to stop life. I wanted to stop breathing. I just wanted to close my eyes and not open them until I was with her. So I couldn't live without her, but I could do all things because the strength wasn't going to come from me. I didn't have it in me. And I think that's one of the things that I want to convey to whoever's listening, right? Like I guess that's the main thing I want to share. And the first one, you don't need to have what it takes to overcome or rise above whatever pain, hardship, adversity you're going through. You don't need to have it. You will be given the strength. You will be given the courage, the wisdom, the discernment to rise and to carry on. And I think understanding that helps relieve some of the weight we put on ourselves and some of the fear that we have when it comes to pursuing a dream or something that God has put in our hearts. Because if God puts something in your heart, He's already given you the power to accomplish it. And He gave me the strength, the grace, the faith, the courage to carry on, to keep on, to face pain. Because I think, and this is probably the second lesson that I want to emphasize, pain is our friend. Pain is not the enemy. Suffering is the enemy. Pain is the foundation of growth, is the pathway to greatness, to hope, to joy. Like it's through pain, through our cross that we resurrect, that we rise up, that we find the light. And oftentimes, because our mind fools us, we think we have to push back on pain. Pain is bad. Oh, this doesn't feel good, so let me stay away from it. But when you embrace it and you allow yourself to feel it, then you're also allowing yourself to rise and become the better version of you that God created you to be. Pain is a foundation for growth. It leads to wisdom. It humbles us because sometimes we're too self-righteous to ask for help or to think we may need assistance, and pain, puts it on our knees, and then at that point we have to ask for help. So it humbles us. It builds empathy. When you've been through pain, you understand in your core how hard it is. And when others are going through pain, regardless of the reason, because we empathize with the feeling, not the situation. When others go through pain, you can connect with them in a deeper way. And I want to emphasize that one of the greatest gifts that God gave me was the strength and the grace to allow myself to sit in the dark with the pain. And how that's different from suffering is when you've gotten used to the pain and when you're not using pain to rise, when you're wasting pain, when you are too comfortable in it and too tired to try to fight it, like to rise above it. When you lose hope, pain, suffering is pain without hope. When you lose hope and you're just suffering and that becomes your lifestyle instead of the tool or the pathway, that's not healthy. That we want to get away from. And it's hard to distinguish at times, but I guess if people listening are in doubt of, well, how do I know if I'm in pain and I'm sitting with the healthy version of pain, or if I'm suffering, I think the best way to look for that answer is by reflecting on, is there hope? Are you feeling the pain knowing that it's temporary and it's not going to last forever, and that it's building strength and wisdom and courage? It's helping you grow. If the answer is yes, you're experiencing pain. If you know that you're not wasting it, right? That it's going to evolve into something different. But if that's the destination, if you feel you're never going to get out of that and that's what life is going to look like forever, you're suffering. And Haruki Murakami, a Japanese writer, says, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So I know pain. I know pain. I lived it in the loss and the grieving of my daughter, but I also experienced it in the day-to-day. When things don't go my way, when with the people around me, as a psychotherapist, I'm exposed to a lot of pain and a financial hardship in these times of the coronavirus pandemic, the illnesses, even going to the hospital and not being able to have your family around you is painful. Like I had corona and I remember feeling like so lonely and rejected. I felt like I had leprosy. Like people, I'm like, nobody wants to be around me. And of course I was being mindful of protecting everybody around me, but just the fact that nobody would even show up at my doorstep when I have a beautiful community to drop off something, right? Like it was painful. And I'm really good about reframing my thoughts and not getting in my head. Like whenever I'm dwelling on something, I remind myself, wait, that's not where I want to go. How do I want to look at this situation so that it serves me? Even though I have that gift, it was hard. I was in my head a lot. I had too much time, isolated in my room and trying not to contaminate anybody else. And it was painful. And that's me having my family in the same house. I can only imagine what people go through in hospitals. Like, pregnant women giving birth. Some of them can't even be with their husbands in the rooms.
Dr. Betsy, your story is so extraordinary with the loss of your daughter and how you rose above all those challenges and the suffering and the pain. And you taught us something today that there's a distinction between pain and suffering. And let me ask you, was this after the loss of your daughter, was that all the things that you went through? Did those things played a part in you becoming a psychotherapist so you could help others go through what you have gone through?
Well, I've been a psychotherapist I've been practicing for 20 years. So it didn't play a role in pursuing that career, but it transformed it. I was a couples therapist mainly. I've been exposed to a lot of different populations, but at the time I was mainly working with couples. And it was my passion, and I thought God put me on this earth to be a couples therapy and help marriages thrive. And I'm obsessed with my husband, so I wanted to share in the joy that it feels to have a partner, a life partner that helps you become a better you. And like I say that the role of a husband is to help the wife get to heaven by helping her become a better version of herself and vice versa. So I wanted to do that with the people I served. But after that, I understood even the couples differently. I felt their pain differently. When people were going through divorce, I could almost complete their sentences, because loss is loss. Loss is not just losing someone because that person died. Loss is losing your life as you knew it. Losing a person, losing a job, losing your health, losing your expectations, your dreams, your life as you knew it. So when I sat with my clients, I understood them differently. I empathized differently, because I could almost like sit with them in that darkness that they were experiencing. And it enabled me to bring them hope. So my career became to shine hope to the people that I served. And as time went by and people saw that I was finding joy again, because all these things I have to emphasize that I didn't think or learn immediately. I had to go through my darkness. I had to go through pain. I had to go through questioning, to all sorts of experiences, anger, guilt, all the emotions you can imagine, before I was able to slowly and gradually, mend the pieces of my heart and learn from the experience. But as time went by and people saw that I had found joy again, they became curious. So I started getting clients that were grieving parents, or they had lost widows, or they had lost someone in their lives, people, divorcees, or people that had gone through divorce. And I remember one day speaking to my manager from my marketing department, and he said, Betsy, like, shouldn't we change our efforts in marketing to address more like people grieving and people going through pain? I'm like, absolutely not. I cannot be the grief lady. I am the couples girl. No, like, to me, like, it was depressing. And I'm like, and besides, they're not going to connect with me. People are not going to understand this idea, philosophy that I have of like, embrace pain. Pain is awesome. It's the foundation for growth. It leads you to your greatest self. Like people are going to be like, you're crazy. You're a masochist. I don't understand. Like, get away from me. And he said, well, maybe that's what they need. Someone that has actually lived that pain and can show them otherwise, can show them a different route. And I left that meeting crying and bawling and praying and begging God, like, no, don't make me be the grief person, please. And I am the grief person. Except I don't see it as the grief person. I am the hope person, right? And I think because pain is inevitable and we all go through it, pain usually unites us and brings us together. But what defines us or keeps us together is the way we respond to pain.
Absolutely.
And that is, in my words, through hope. It's through hope. So I have devoted my speaking career and my private practice to shining hope to hopeless people and to helping and to providing tools that are going to help others rise above adversity. So I've studied everything that I did with myself and with my clients to help us overcome pain and rise above it. And I have put everything in a book to be able to make sure that I can share the gift that God gave me of this pain by shedding some light and hope in the people around us. And the book was actually launched on December 3rd. December 3rd is my daughter's birthday. She would have turned 10 this year.
Wow.
So it was my gift to her. It took me over 2 years to write this book. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I had to relive pain in order to connect with the reader by describing the details. And as everything in life, when you serve and you think you're doing something for other people, there's like a double blessing. You may be blessing them, but you're also blessing yourself because there was a lot of healing in the process. So I've identified all the skills, like clinical and spiritual, right? Because I can't do psychology without doing God, right? There's, to me, where psychology ends, faith begins. And I just can't. And I refuse to. So I'm unapologetic about my faith. And in this book, I share clinical and spiritual tools that are going to help people rise regardless of the hardship. Because at the end of the day, pain is pain.
Yes.
Pain is pain.
That is so awesome. Take it away, Payola.
No, I was listening to you. I felt like, all my life it was like, I was a victim. This person that's always like, not sad all the time, but feeling that, I was in pain for stuff that happened, either my parents or a cheating boyfriend or financial, crisis, and then not having this. But listening to you make me feel that I haven't experienced anything. This is, it's just like, go up, Paola. That's what just listening to what you've been through, what you're going through. And then, so I have stuff, which I'm going to see you after. Definitely. But really admire your courage. What? Yes.
You have gone through things. And I think one of the lessons that I've learned in this process is that we compare too much. Oh, but mine is not as bad as that, so I shouldn't feel this way. But the worst pain that you can experience is not that of the loss of a child. The worst pain is the one that you are going through in the present moment. And it is important to honor it and to feel it and to acknowledge it, as long as you use it to get to a different place, to elevate yourself. Yes. But don't, and my clients would do that. They would be like, oh, I can't even tell you this because compared to you.
I feel ridiculous just thinking about
no.
those things, like, the moments I used to cry or like wake up in the middle of the night not being able to sleep because I feel so, and then it's just like, how will I get alive, girl?
But you're entitled to feel that way.
Okay.
If this inspires you by making you feel, well, if she could do it, I can do it too, then yes. But never to come to the conclusion that because hers is worse and mine is no good, and I'm just being a wimp, right? Like I think if you're gonna compare it, let it be to help motivate you to overcome it, right? But never to judge your pain as inferior, because then that's what makes you push back on pain and not sit with it, so that you can learn the lessons that only it is gonna bring you.
That is so powerful. Dr. Brown, do you have any questions for Dr. Betsy?
Dr. Betsy, the concept of the path of pain as it takes you to the better version of yourself. I think our listeners would like to hear that in a clear sentence from you. The concept that we need the path of pain, not suffering. Pain does bring suffering. But that path of pain that brings us to the better version of ourselves, and how we can embrace that pain to become all God wants us to be.
The only way around pain is through. And I feel like a great illustration of this is there's no Easter without Good Friday, right? Like you can't, like Jesus couldn't have risen unless he would have been crucified. And it is when you feel pain, when you experience adversity, because you're so vulnerable, you're more attentive and humble. You're more attentive to the lessons, to the help, to God's mercy, to faith, like you're so uncomfortable with the pain that you'll do anything to get rid of it. And it's in that process, that's the path, right? It's in that process that the things that you do to help you rise become your foundation for growing, for becoming wiser, for becoming a better version of yourself by being more empathetic and kinder to people, for serving, for inspiring to create a program with purpose that's going to help a lot of other people. And then when you get to the glory, and you look back at the story,
Wow.
you realize that it was surrounded by pain.
Wow. There you have it, listeners. This has been a powerful and inspirational episode with the lovely Dr. Betsy. From the loss of her daughter, overcoming those challenges and those feelings and the pain and the suffering. This has just been an inspirational session. Thank you, listeners out there. Please submit your questions to us. We will address those questions in the first session in January 2021. So again, thank you for listening, and we hope to see you again next Saturday.